Hello again. Welcome back to your 5-minute devotional stop with me, Amy Phillips. I'm on a journey moving from fear to faith, and I hope you'll join me for Just Believe. Hello, dear ones. So this week I was talking with a friend about the difference we've seen between people who really want to be healed and the ones who maybe say with their mouth they want healing, but in reality they don't know how to reach for it, or maybe they're too comfortable where they are. And just as a side note, when I'm talking about healing this podcast, I'm talking not just physical healing, but every kind of healing, from physical to emotional to spiritual. But so the ones who really want healing are the ones who receive the most healing. In John 5:6, Jesus finds a man who's been lying by the pool of Bethesda. For 38 years, he's been crippled and awaiting healing. And it says, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he'd been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" This seems to be Jesus' MO. Do you want to get well? You may have heard people say that God is a gentleman. He doesn't force himself on us. And this seems very true of him. He wants to be invited into our suffering, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, but he also wants to be invited into our healing. Let's read this story of one woman who wanted healing so badly she was prepared to do anything to get it. Let me set it up for you. This woman has been bleeding, probably uterine bleeding, for 12 years. It says she's seen every kind of doctor. She's spent all she had, and now she's poor, she's weak, and she hears that Jesus is coming. The crowd was pressing in around Jesus. It's literally the same Greek word as choked, used in the parable of the seeds. The worries and care of the world choked out the life. So that's what's happening with this crowd. There's no space to breathe, let alone room for a weak woman to press through to touch Jesus, and yet she makes it happen. And she doesn't want to confront him in public because she's ceremonially unclean. She's not even supposed to be out in public. So in shame, she tries to touch him without exposing herself. Let's read it from Mark 5. It says, a large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who'd been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She'd suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body, and she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding around you," his disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear, and told him the whole truth. And he said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Jesus wanted to know where the power had gone, not because he was mad, but I think because he wanted to see her face to face. He wanted her to know that she'd been seen and loved and free from this shame she'd been carrying. And I think he wanted her to know it was her perseverance to push through the crowd, he called it faith, that had healed her. It may have been the first kind words from a man she'd heard in 12 years. So what had healed her? Jesus says it was her faith. Her longing that pushed through every obstacle, her desire for healing pushed her into Jesus. But in the end, it was acceptance and love from him that she received, perhaps even eclipsing the healing that had occurred. One of the promises of God is that when we long for him and we long for what's right, we will be filled. He will not leave us empty. It says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." But we have to hunger and we have to thirst in order to be filled. Often we're living our lives just going with the flow, letting whatever comes come. But Jesus asks us the question, do you want to be well? What are you hungering and thirsting for? My recognition in years of ministry has been that I can teach someone until I'm blue in the face, or have hours of ministry with someone, and still if they don't want to change, if they're not hungering for him, they've not received any of it. But then I encounter a person who's after Jesus, and they want all of him and will let nothing in the way of finding him and the abundant life he promises. They have serious gumption and purpose running after him. They take everything to heart. They pray through everything. They long to be close to him, just like the woman who reached out to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. She was desperate for healing, and she knew that if she just touched him, she would be healed. Unfortunately, it seems that sometimes people have to get to this breaking point where the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of changing. And maybe you feel that way for someone close to you, or maybe for yourself today. So how do we run after him? How do we say yes to that question he's always asking? Do you want to be well? How do we touch the hem of his garment? I wish there was a quick formula. There's no formula, but it is about faith. There is a relationship, a friendship that has the ability to change us completely. This relationship is with our best friend, our greatest ally, and greatest cheerleader. He is a lover like no other in the world, wanting to be closer than a brother to our hearts. And he stands at the door knocking. Every day he's still waiting to come in and eat with us. He's wanting to heal us. He's wanting to touch our hearts. He's asking, do you want to be well? And if the answer is yes, open up the door. What does that place of faith look like for you? It's going to be different for each one of us. For some, it may be as simple as consistency in prayer and reading the Word. For others, it may be time with a trusted friend or counselor to talk and pray through issues that are keeping you comfortable, even though you want that healing so badly. For some, it's listening to messages or journaling or going to a conference. What's your place of faith? No matter how you get there, the truth is that you have a loving Father who's not holding out on you. He is instead waiting patiently for you to say yes and give him all of your heart. I prayed this week, and maybe you'll join with me. Lord, let me run and keep running after you. Let me keep my hand outstretched, reaching for your garment over and over again, always wanting more of you, Jesus. I reach out my hand and my heart to you. God, I press on towards you. I ask you, Father, for faith. Come and have your way in Jesus' name. So cry out to him today in answer to his question. Yes, Lord, I want to be healed. He is a Father who answers desperation. He answers longing, and he will come in when he's invited. Friends, he is so for you. Let him look you in the eye, face to face, removing any shame and stigmas, and may you be healed. Do not fear, just believe. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you feel encouraged and strengthened. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at amybphillips.com. See you next time.